Hi, I'm Virginia, for those that don't know me. I'm an executive coach helping ambitious corporate women learn how to say no, overcome stress, so they can avoid burnout. Prior to starting my coaching practice, I spent 24 years in banking and finance, where I worked my way from teller to small community bank to senior vice president of a $27 billion bank by the age of 38. So I know what the work is. I relate, women, but I nearly burned out along the way. So now I want to share with those who are driven, and we need you. We need those who are trying to advance their careers and their companies, care for their families, and do the best they can for them and their communities as well. So, but if you burn out, you can't help anybody. So I'm looking to share with you what I've learned so that you can continue to thrive and succeed and save the world without burning out. So I spend, not only do I have my own experience, but I research burnout regularly. And so in the course of my work, I came across the topic of clutter in a book called How to Quiet the Chaos and Restore Your Sanity. And the authors share their personal experience. In this, the author, Kathy Lipp, talks about how the clutter in her home was impacting her productivity. You know, simple things. Going to make a sandwich, well, you had to clean off the counter to make room to make the sandwich. And then you probably had to shuffle all that stuff back somewhere else when you were done. So how exhausting, right? To do every task required more effort and energy. Well, yeah, if you're living like that and that's your environment, yeah, you're going to be exhausted and you're not going to be able to do as much as you want to do. But as I read this, I also thought about, well, wait, there's more than just our physical clutter that gets in the way. There's other people's clutter, especially at work. And then there's the clutter and noise in our own minds. So maybe you keep your house and workspace, no piles, everything is in its place. I mean, the one upside of having worked in a regulated environment in an open office concept, you know, when you've got to be very mindful of information security protocols, you pretty much put everything away at the end of the day. So you walk into a clean desk. But if you're walking into a desk with stacks of papers and files and reports, and that's probably not setting your day up for a great, we're ready to roll. It's like, it goes back to that example of the sandwich, right? You got to move stuff to get stuff done. So you're consuming extra time and energy, and none of us have extra time. What about other people's stuff? Right? We probably all have that coworker who they're disorganized. They can't find anything on their workspace. They're always late to a meeting. When you ask them for an answer in a meeting, they've got to shuffle through papers or through their computer. You know, they're the ones who've got their entire desktop filled with files, and you're like, how do you find anything? So it may not be your own clutter that's stressing you out, but the people around you. Years ago, I had a very knowledgeable colleague who, if you walked by her in her workspace, you'd say, she's a hot mess. I mean, there was just stuff everywhere. I mean, it actually, papers and stuff from her cube started to creep up under into mine. Luckily, it was on the bottom, so it wasn't quite as distracting as if it was, you know, desk level. But still, right? You're probably like, oh my gosh, how does somebody function like that? Well, first off, don't judge them. They're probably judging themselves enough, right? And it's not helping you, and it's certainly not helping them. But if you're stressing out because their environment and how they manage, or what may appear to be not manage things, is stressing you out because you're waiting on them for deliverables, information, you know, They're just holding up a meeting even, and it stresses you out because you've got an agenda, you've got things to accomplish. You're not going to change them, right? You're really not. Listen, there was nothing I could do or say to that dear coworker that was going to make her change. As a matter of fact, for her, it took having a baby to change because she didn't want to be that mom. And that's what it was. Now, I'm not saying you have to go have a baby to declutter. That would be really weird advice since babies create more stuff. But I share that example is there's nothing you are going to say or do. It takes something personal and internal for that person to make that change. But what you can do is change how you react to it. If you know they're always 5 minutes late to a meeting, plan for it. You know, at the start time, say, listen, we need so-and-so. They're typically 5 minutes late. So if you want to catch up on your email, go get a cup of coffee, hit the restroom because you didn't have time. Go ahead. We're actually going to start the meeting at 5 after. Do the same for yourself. Give yourself that permission to go. Because in today's environment, right, you're probably in back-to-backs. So you know what? Take advantage. Rather than sitting there and you're all stewing, say, we're going to start at 5 after. Go take a 5-minute break. If you smoke, go have a cigarette. But be back at 5 after, because that's when we're going to start. So you cared for that person to be late. You gave them space. You gave everybody else time to use the time to serve them and be productive in what they need. And you're not stressing. If they owe you deliverables and you've historically had experience where you gave them what was appropriate like you would everyone else, but they're always a day or two late, and then it puts you behind because you needed that to complete your task, set their deadline a little early. And anticipate that they're going to give it to you a day or two past what that deadline is. So then you have it on time. Change how you manage it, how you deal with it, because that is in your control. Why stress? If you know they're always this way, then plan for it. Worst case, they got it to you early. You get to meet your deadline early. Win-win. Don't stress over it. Or offer them, how can I help you get this done? And again, make sure it's not at the 11th hour that you need it, that you're asking for it in advance. Odds are, they're probably carrying not only that physical clutter, that mental clutter. Yeah. Now, some of us only have the mental clutter, right? When you put your head on the pillow, does your laundry list of things that you've got to get done tomorrow start flooding? The list for work, the list for home. Maybe now that we can actually go on vacations again, you've got that list too. Oh, all the stuff you have to do to get the kids ready for school or for the PTA or the church or, whatever charity you support. Oh yeah, I got to do all that. Or your parents, if you have elderly parents. That's a lot of lists. Are they all banging around in there? And maybe it's not every day. Maybe it's just, right before the school year when there's extra. Or for me, it's the fall. CCD starts, field hockey. This year I've taken on planning a community event that's the weekend after Labor Day. So yeah, I get it. There's a lot of lists running around. And so if you can't focus, you're not crossing anything off. And that's just staying as clutter in there. So first off, you two are not alone. Take a deep breath. You may not feel the same embarrassment and shame as the outward clutter that other people see, but it can almost be worse when it's internal, because then nobody knows that you're managing all of this. And they may not understand why you're all stressed out, because there's not something physical that they see. You can see the disorganized colleague. You can see the clutter on their desk. So you're aware and you can adjust. But the person next to you doesn't see all the clutter in your head. And so they may keep throwing more at you. And you're thinking, oh my God, what makes you think I have room for this? Because they don't see how much is already up there. Right? That's probably even worse than the physical clutter. Because that too impacts your productivity. Because you're switching from thing to thing. And you're trying to juggle so many things. If you're not focused, nothing is getting done. And nobody sees you juggling all those things. Maybe your spouse or your partner, close friend that you confide in. But most people don't see it like they do that stuff. So how do you manage that? First off, just like I said, don't judge those with all the stuff around them. Don't judge yourself. That's not going to help, right? That's just more clutter. Take a deep breath. Say, okay. When your mind, especially when it's all rattling around in there, you feel mentally like you're walking through an episode of Hoarders. Stop. Take a couple deep breaths. It really does make a difference. Only a few minutes. I'm not saying you have to go sit cross-legged on the floor in your office for 30, 45 minutes, deep breaths, thinking about nothing. I get it. You don't have time. Take a couple minutes. Stop. Take a deep breath, right? If you've got a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, just focus. Actually smell and enjoy the aroma. Focus on something. Build some muscle memory. Practice something that helps you focus, right? I do yoga. Part of the benefit is if you've practiced yoga, you know there's a lot of balance work in there. Well, it's great for your health as you age, right? We tend to lose our balance. So it's important to help keep our flexibility in that. But mentally, if you've ever taken a yoga class or done a yoga app or video, whenever there's balance, they'll tell you, focus your eyes on a single point. Great. When you really do that, you start to balance. And a lot of times you're thinking, oh, I'm balanced. And you start thinking. And you're now no longer really mentally focused on that single point. And you wobble. You fall out of the pose. When you bring your mind back to focusing on that single point, you balance better. So if you can train your mind to do that, just like you work, you don't bust out 100 push-ups the first time or burpees, right? You start with a small number, and as you get stronger, as your muscles get stronger, you can do more. Or if you run, you don't run a marathon the first time you lace up your sneakers and hit the sidewalk. You work up to it. Same thing. Practice. And maybe yoga isn't your thing, right? I do cardio. I use a heart rate monitor. And I notice once I start thinking about all my to-do lists and all my mental clutter, my heart rate drops. Guess what? My workout isn't as productive then. And as soon as I see that number starting to dip or the color change and going down, I'm like, wait, focus. Focus on what you're doing. And I'm more productive. I'm more efficient. I'm getting more for my time. Maybe it's something like an electronic game that's timed. Solitaire or something. I'm sure there's one. So you have to focus because you're trying to win and you're being timed. So you can't get up and go do something else. Whatever works to help you practice, build the habit of being able to focus, find a little time. 5 minutes on an app, 20 minutes of yoga. Maybe it's, a couple minutes just sitting quietly, very focused on your cup of coffee in the morning or your cup of tea, experiencing the aroma. I noticed when I started focusing on, doing things like that in regular daily yoga practice, and I started to notice things more. Simple things that you don't even think, right? I bet if you're a woman, about my age watching this, you have some sort of face care regime, right? Maybe you spend a lot of money on those products that you're putting on every night, eye cream. I know I do. I started to notice that the moisturizer I use at night has a beautiful aroma. But before, because I was just rushing, like, oh, I got to get this on, I got to get to bed, and I'm thinking about all these other things, I never noticed it. And then a few months ago, I'm like, wow, this smells fabulous. So I'm spending all this money on this. I should really even enjoy it more. So you'll start to notice, right? That meant my mental clutter was tipping away. Because before, I didn't even notice it had a scent at all, let alone that it was this great aroma. And I'm like, wow, I really enjoy this smell. Because before, there were so many things running through my mind at night, I was just going through the motions. So find something that will help you build that focus to clear out that clutter, and you'll be more productive. And you'll probably enjoy things more, right? Night cream isn't something we really enjoy. It's a thing we do because we're trying to look less wrinkly. Nothing wrong with that. But here, because I practiced this other things, even that became more enjoyable. It cleared out my mental clutter. So, whether it's your own mental clutter, your physical clutter, maybe you've got both, or it's somebody else's, focus on the things you can change, right? If it's your physical clutter, don't put on your to-do list, hey, I'm going to declutter my entire house and car and office this week. Oh yeah, that's going to happen. Pick one spot. Think about the example I said, the beauty of, being in banking where we had to be very careful about what information could be seen. Pick your desk. If your desk is a little bit, say, okay, whatever time frame is realistic, I'm going to get that cleaned away. And then keep it up every night before you shut down, whether it's leaving the office or just turning off your laptop at home. Say, you know what? I'm going to put everything away. So when I walk in the morning, the space is clean. I have a clean slate. Maybe it's your kitchen counters. I had a dear friend share that when she comes home, she just wants the kitchen counters clear. It sets the whole tone for her evening with her family. And they know that. And I get that. When I come home, I walk into my kitchen. There's stuff everywhere. Especially when I live alone. That would be weird. But even when I lived with somebody and he worked on American Muscle. Great hobby. Cool. But when I got home from a long day in the office and an hour plus commute, and I walked into the kitchen and there were car parts on the kitchen table, yeah, that wasn't a good night. That did not set a relaxing evening in place. So think about what it is. If it's, I need to end my day in this one, when I walk in, I need this one spot clean. That's all I'm asking for. The counters. Or maybe it's the front hall. Whatever works for you. Maybe it's knowing that at the end of the day, I've cleaned up my work and it mentally tells me, okay, I'm done. I'm transitioning into my family life now. And in the morning when you come into work, wherever that space is, it's clean. You're not feeling behind the 8 ball already. You're setting yourself up for a day. When we were kids, back, when I was a kid, maybe not subsequent generations, we had base, right? When you got to base, you were safe. Create your base free of clutter. There's no physical clutter. It's going to help your mental clutter. Right? So, what's your base? What's that space that's clutter-free for you physically and mentally? So, I hope you found this beneficial. I hope you have some ideas to help whether your clutter is physical, mental, both, or somebody else's, and it's stressing you out. And if you're like, no, everybody I know and work with is perfectly organized, timely with everything, I have no mental or physical clutter whatsoever, well, kudos to you. Please write a book. But seriously, even if you're like, oh, this didn't really resonate with me now, maybe somebody you know needs to hear this, especially if it's internal clutter and you don't know it. So I kindly ask you to consider sharing this, because you may be helping a friend more than you know. So if you want to learn more, you're like, this sounds great, I don't know where to start, Virginia, I need help, I'm here to help you too, or whoever picks up the video that when you've shared it. Check out my website, virginiawalton.com. You can leave me a comment here on Facebook, comments on LinkedIn, message me. My website even has my phone number. Text me. Let's get you a little bit clutter free, especially before the new school year starts, or whatever, the new month in August. Let's get you working on that plan to clear out some space. With that, be well, and we'll talk soon.